First of all, my name is Boris Albert Stern.
Yes, sir.
I'm 92 years old. I've been living in Tampa for 44 years, but originally from Chicago, where I was born. When I was in the Army, I was entered as a private, then private first class, and ended up as a sergeant and infantry squad leader. I enlisted on August 12th, 1943. And the reason I enlisted, I was living in Chicago, and the reason I enlisted in the Army was because I didn't want to get drafted. And I didn't want to get drafted because I didn't want to get in the Navy or Air Force. I wanted to be on the ground. So that's why I enlisted. My first days in service were at Fort Benning, Georgia, in the infantry school. I was in very good shape, so I had no problems physically. I was also the shortstop on my company team, and it sounds like I'm wasting time talking about it, but I was a good ball player, and I had no problems relating to anybody. Everybody, I was a good ball player, and as long as I was a shortstop, everything went well. Boot camp training was very rigorous. We didn't call it boot camp. That's a new name. And we were in there, I think we were there 12 or 13 weeks. Then I was sent up to Indiana, where I joined the 106th Infantry Division around April 1st. I was in the headquarters company, 2nd Battalion, 424th Infantry Regiment of the 106th Infantry Division. I was a private first class. And we were there basically doing very, very, very rigorous training all spring, all summer, and into the fall. And you see now, my job as part of a platoon, as far as the training was concerned, was to make sure that all the companies in our battalion had enough to eat, and when we had war games and ammunition. Somewhere around the beginning of October of 1944, we were sent to some camp on the East Coast for about a week, and then sent down to New York City, where we got on a British liner called the Aquitania and sailed for England. We were on at sea maybe 3 or 4 days, and that's when I had my 19th birthday, because I enlisted when I was 17. And we landed in Scotland in the middle of the night. To this day, I don't know the port. We were 7 days on the water. We got on a train, stopped somewhere, and about 3 in the morning, there were a bunch of women passing out food for us and cookies, which I thought was wonderful that late, that early in the morning. And then we ended up in a small town called Adderbury, Adderbury. It was near Oxford, England, northwest of London. And that's where we were for about a month. We didn't do a darn thing. There was no training, no nothing, just waiting. While we were there, I got a chance to go to London. And I took a train to London, and as I was walking up from the underground, there was a big explosion right near where I was going to get out. And I turned around and went back and got on the train and went back to Atterbury. I figured I'd come back to London some other time, which I did many times. Then somewhere around the beginning of December, we were sent down to the port in England on the English Channel, and we got on a small New Zealand liner, and the weather was very bad, very cold and very rough, and we were supposed to cross the channel, and the channel was so rough, it took us 7 days. We never got off the ship, 7 days just to cross the English Channel. And the seventh day, they got LSTs, landing ship tanks, next to us on the ship. We climbed down. We landed on the shore in the middle of the night, maybe middle of the night, could have been 9, 10 o'clock, but it was dark and very, very cold. And the trucks that were supposed to be there weren't there. I asked my platoon leader if I could find, there were German bunkers up in front of us that were empty by then. Anyway, to make a long story short, I and some other guys went in there, and we were in there 10 minutes. There was a big explosion out on the beach, and we had our first casualty. Some of the guys tried to light a fire, and I don't know how many guys got hurt or killed or whatever, but that's where we had them. Anyway, trucks came along later, got on the trucks, and our truck broke down. But anyway, it took us 2 or 3 days to get to the Belgian-German border. I'm talking about just our truck. And we were in woods, and we could hear our artillery firing all day and all night. All we had to do was sit around and pull guard duty. I don't know why, but we had to pull guard duty. There was nobody to guard. But anyway, on the 12th of December 1944, we went on the line in front of a town in Germany, in front of a town called Prum. And we were in the Ardennes and the Schnee Eifel, high snow mountains. On the 14th of December, our battalion second in command is a major from Knoxville, Tennessee, came and asked me, but he was telling me that I was going to go back to a town called Winterspelt, or Winters. It's Winters. If you look at it, it's spelled with a W, but it's pronounced Winterspelt. That's where our battalion headquarters was. And he said we had one of the war games we had in Indiana, and I was sent back to do the job. We got a commendation from the Corps commander. I didn't know that. But anyway, so now I'm a sergeant, and I'm in charge of all the supplies for our battalion. And so I go back 2 days. On the 14th of December, I'm back in Winterspelt. On the 16th of December, I'm in like a 2-story nice house, which is like a hotel, little motel. And in the 5:30, 6 o'clock, I don't remember, it was very early, I heard tremendous explosions, and I knew it wasn't like our artillery, but a lot of them crawled up, and the place was unbelievable. There's explosions everywhere, and all I could do was keep my head down, and had no idea what was happening. And about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, it lit up, and I got out, and we still had no idea what was going on. Nobody did. But another guy and I went up on the second floor. Actually, I went up first, and he came up, and I had my field glasses, and looked around, and way off in a distance, I saw what looked like German soldiers setting up mortar plates and mortars. And I called down to our lieutenant, and he called in artillery, and they got him. I think they got him because we didn't see him again. But later that day, there was a small creek near where we were, and then a big hill behind it. And I went out and I mined the bridge and went up on the hill with what we forgot what we called it, but I'll remember a cord, primacord, which is an explosive cord, and which I ran up, and I thought, well, if we see tanks coming down the road to blow up the bridge. And as I was going up, I heard a machine gun fire, and I heard sounds like woof, 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 woof. I said, man, they're firing at me. And I went right on my face and crawled back down. Anyway, that still didn't know what was going on, really. And I went out, told my platoon leader that I didn't want to stay in town because I had just too much shelling, but I would go out and dug a hole, and that's where I'd be in the night, during the night. And I did. I went out about 400 or 500 yards, quite a ways out of town, and dug a hole. And he came and got me about midnight and told me that regimental headquarters was in trouble and we needed to go up and help them. And I was a bazooka guy. They knew, because I knew how to use a bazooka. So the only thing was, I told them that if I go, I want the bazooka loaded, because the rules were you don't go around with a loaded bazooka. So he said, okay. So anyway, that same creek I told you about, we went over, drove up the creek because you couldn't go on the roads. The Germans had them. And we got there about 4 in the morning, and the place was a madhouse. And I went in another room and just laid down on the floor and went to sleep. And it woke me up somewhere, again, I don't know, maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock. And said they were pulling out, and they wanted me with my bazooka and 3 other guys to set up a roadblock, which was a death assignment. And so anyway, just then, maybe 5 minutes later, my platoon leader from back there, my company, came down, and he said he needed me. They were going in a town called Saint Vite, which is our division headquarters, because our battalion and regiment was running out of everything, and we needed to load up, and they needed me with the bazooka, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, he saved my life. And we got in the car, I got in the Jeep, and we had a truck behind us, and we drove into Saint Vite to our division dump. Got to the dump, there was absolutely nobody there. The place was full of stuff, but there was not a person there. So we started loading the trucks, and maybe 10, 15 minutes, we started getting shelled again, real heavily. And this time, it was a German panzer division attacking Saint Vite. They quite a ways, they made quite a big gain in one day. But by then, we had part of the 7th Armored Division supporting us, and they were shooting back at them. But we were hopping up and down. I was on my face 100 times. And I think I told you that watch my father gave me for my high school graduation is still laying there in the mud somewhere. But anyway, we managed to get the truck loaded, and a truck loaded, and we pulled out with the truck and ended up somewhere where I have no idea. It wasn't where we had left, but we set up a roadblock and dug holes, and we shared holes. There were 2 of us in a hole, but one would be in at a time. In other words, we had 24-hour roadblock. And this is where we started getting shelled by what we called these rockets, screaming Mimis. They made a tremendous noise when you could hear them when they go woo, 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 woo. And then you knew here they'd come, and then they weren't accurate, but there'd be tons of them. And it was a wonder. I mean, we didn't have anything like it. The Germans had it. But anyway, we managed to. I managed to make it out of there. But that's the place where we stopped I think there were three or four. I don't remember. There were Germans in the Jeep. We didn't know they were Germans. They were dressed in American uniforms, trying to go through our block, and we started asking where were you born, who was the mayor, et cetera, et cetera. There were 3 of them, that's right. And pretty soon it was obvious they were Germans, and they had under their American uniforms part of a German uniform. But anyway, that's the place where we shot the three when we killed them. I don't know what would happen today if we did anything like that. But anyway, we ended up pulling out. The 81st Airborne got on our right, and the 7th Armored Tanks came, and we all got on top of the tanks, and we pulled out somewhere. It must have been somewhere about the 22nd of December, so we held them off for about 6 days. And that sort of gave the other units the time to get into the area, and that's what saved that's how the Bulge was saved, and that the Germans didn't get through. But anyway, we ended up in a big field, and the 23rd, the day is the day, the rain and snow and everything had stopped, although it was still very cold. The sky was blue. By noon, you couldn't see the sky anymore because the contrails had filled it up, and all the German and American planes or British planes were out shooting each other. And we caught a German guy coming down in a parachute. And I asked him in German, I was my battalion interpreter, by the way, if he thought he was looking to win the war, and he told me in perfect English, there's always hope. So you never know. And anyway, the next day, the 24th, that later in the day, we were sent to a town called Manhay, in front of Manhay, not Manhay, but near Manhay. And our battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Humanoff, I learned later on, I didn't know it then, raised hell because we hardly had any ammunition, and we didn't have much in the way of supplies. Anyway, they kicked him out. We didn't know any of that. Everything I'm telling you now I knew later. But he was a terrific guy, tough as hell, but fair. Anyway, we get in front of Manhay, and Christmas night, or I don't know, it was Christmas Eve, you could hear the Germans singing Christmas carols, which I thought was very interesting. But anyway, they were shelling us, and we were shelling them. And we attacked, I think it was Christmas Day, we attacked Manhay. And the only problem was that our artillery fired short and cleaned out one of our, I think it was F Company in our battalion. It was a tremendous loss. And of course, we didn't take Manhay. But that night I was told I didn't drive. We got 4 of us got in a truck, 3 of us and a driver. And we drove out into the field looking for bodies. Found a lot of bodies, found only one guy alive, got him in the truck, and again came under machine gun fire, but we made it out. And we got him back to a field hospital. And when I walked in, the floor was covered with blood. But I didn't care. I was so tired. I just went up on the 2nd floor, found a nice bed. It was a house, and just fell asleep. But anyway, I was a sergeant by this time, by the way. I can't remember the next couple of towns that we took. But then we were sent to another town in front of a town called Grand Hello. It's AUX is the way it ends. HALLEAUX. That's not where we were. We were in front of it. And that's where I got my squad in a house, and I dug a hole next to the road, and that's where I stopped the command car with the USO people in it. I think there were 2 women and a guy. I don't remember anymore how exactly, but I know at least 2 women. And I thought they were going to go to the front, and I told them if they went 50 yards, they were going to be the front. That's exactly what I said. They told me to get the hell out of there before the crap hit the fan. And that's actually where I got this scratch on my leg from mortar fragment. There was nobody there. You just took care of it yourself. Anyway, it was the next day or the day after. I don't know if you ever heard anything called TOT. It's called time on target. That's when all the artillery behind fires so that all the shells get there about the same time. And it's unbelievable. Well, they laid into them, and we walked in and took the town. We didn't have to do anything. We just walked in. And but after that, they pulled us off again and sent us to another area. And we were in a field in the woods, and we got advised that the Germans had mined the area with what we called shoe mines. They're little wooden box with a mine in them. And we had a guy, we were supposed to walk around longshore. They did. Some did, and got hurt. But anyway, we're in front of a town called Bulge, attacked Bulge. By that I mean we didn't. We were supported by another. I can't remember the name of the division. Artillery tank division, and they had their new long cannons. The old ones were short, but these were long, high velocity. And Bulge had behind the city was a big hill with German bunkers all around, and with these new high velocity cannons the tanks had, they just cleaned them out. And again, we walked into town. I blew up a safe with just some candy or something, and it wasn't worth anything. But we lost quite a few guys over that period, and were sent back to France to get more people. The guys we got they were practically real green. They didn't know anything. But the only thing about being in France, there was an airport near their army airport. Another guy and I got to go on one mission. It found out later on we were supporting the Third Army crossing the Rhine. I got sick and threw up on the plane, but that's another story. But those are let me put it this way: there's some pretty rough parts there. But when the war ended, we were in a town called Hildesheim in Germany. We had a party that night. There were 18 of the guys, original guys in my company. We had a party. That's what was left, 18 out of the 180. So you get an idea of what happened. A German woman, I wouldn't have been there, a German woman, I banged on her door, asked her in German if she had any bedrooms, and she had one. We got my squad in there, and she saw I was walking funny and asked me about my leg. I told her in German it's very cold, sehr kalt, and she stayed up with me, bringing me hot water all night, soaked my leg, and by morning I was okay. But if she hadn't done it, I would have been another one that lost my leg. We lost a lot of guys. I don't know that they lost their leg, but they were gone because their legs were frozen. So those are kind of things that happened. After the war ended, we were set up to take care of our battalion of about 60 to 70,000 prisoners in this town called Hildesheim, really right outside the town. It was a vine-growing area where they grew grapes for wine, and a lot of things happened there. We had it was near the Rhine River, and when we first started, we would find 6 or 7, 10, 12, 15 bodies floating in the water every morning, but that stopped. But the deal there was to get rid of the women first. So they went somewhere, and then get rid of the Eastern Europeans who never wanted to go back because they were afraid the Russians were going to kill them. But they went, and then the SS, et cetera, and then we had them. The rest of them were trying to get them to build little huts because they were sleeping on the ground or in holes. and we'd have 10 or 15 die every morning later on. By morning, they died somewhere during the night. They'd bring them up to the front of the place where we kept them, and we'd put them in trucks, and off they went. I didn't mention it, but the where we were is between a city called Mainz and Bingen. The river runs east and west between Mainz and Bingen, and that's where the prisoners were on the south side of the Rhine. Anyway, other than that, I was sent up to Belgium later on for help repair some cars. Had German mechanics work for us, but that really had nothing to do with the war. That was just afterwards. I should have been discharged in November of '45, but because of that, I didn't get discharged till March. But other than that's a quick story. The day I got discharged on March 10th, 1946, in a suburb right outside of Chicago. As far as close friends, everybody was close friends, but we never talked after that, not once. Actually, most of the guys didn't know where they lived. We didn't have anybody's address, and not everybody, almost everybody was single, and so we didn't, they moved like I moved, so forth and so on. And the only relationships that we have now is that we have an annual meeting with guys that are left in our division, so we get to meet each other and see if we can remember who we are, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's about it, unless you have any questions. I have no idea. We don't know. I mean, it should have been cleared. But as I said, that's where we had the explosion.
Yes, sir.
So, we were laying in the middle of the night. We weren't looking. All we were trying to do was stay dry and warm. And you don't have any. You got to remember, we didn't know. You said Normandy. We didn't know we were in Normandy. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know where we were. A lot of the things I've told you, you find out later on. And so that's that's all I can tell you. No, actually, we had no problems with. If you want to look at it that way, if there were Nazis there, the real hard Nazis, they didn't practice Nazism. Most of the Germans, the prisoners, the civilians especially, were very nice to us because they needed us. They didn't have a damn thing. If you start, for what I'm saying, they were very nice. We had what they call a non-fraternization policy. Did you ever hear that? I tell you about my platoon, my assistant squad leader killed himself. Did I tell you this?
No.
He was from Minnesota. His name was Hanson. Pop Hanson was 38. And he fell in love. I didn't know all this. Anything I'm telling you now I didn't know. I knew later on. He fell in love with a German woman, and you couldn't talk to any Germans unless it was business, so to speak. This is after the war. And anyway, something was coming up, and I'm looking for Pop. He's not there. He's supposed to, we had to do. So I finally killed himself, shot himself. And he's one of the 18 guys that made it, and he killed himself. So Pop Hanson from Minnesota. I had up in Belgium, I had two mechanics that were German mechanics. They were very good guys and very friendly, and had no problem with them whatsoever. I got 2 days off back in when we were in front of the town called Bulge, my platoon leader fired his carbine off next to my left ear. And I went totally deaf. I mean, couldn't hear anything. So they sent me back to a town called Verviers for 2 days. I didn't see a doctor, didn't see anybody. And then my hearing started to come back, so that was it. So I lost my hearing, got a scratch on my leg, and I'm deaf in my left ear now. Yeah, an M1, but when I got promoted, I got a carbine. Yeah, I was a expert. You know, you have to look at my discharge. I didn't even know it says expert this, sharpshooter that, blah blah blah. That was a good shot. In 1989, my wife and I flew to Paris, and I rented a car, and we drove all the way up through the areas where we'd been. Everything was unrecognizable, except where I told you the story where I stopped at the command car with the ladies and the guy in it. You could still see where I dug the hole next to the side of the road. It wasn't a hole anymore, but it was a nice depression, and it was there. But everybody was very nice, and especially in Saint-Vite, we had a dinner and a very nice little restaurant, and the owner asked me what I was doing there because it was November, and I told him. Anyway, he made us a meal. Maybe I told you about that too. It would have cost me $500 in New York without getting too complicated. It was a wonderful meal, and everybody was extremely friendly. If I didn't know what I was doing. Well, it depends on the circumstances. If the way things are today, the answer would be no, because the government doesn't support the troops. They give them too many rules of things they can do and they can't do. I told you, like, we shot those three guys. I don't know what the rules would be. There'd be somebody with a TV camera behind us showing everybody that we killed three prisoners of war, blah, blah, blah. Or that we did this or did that. I'm not getting into a whole bunch of stuff, but there are other things that I don't think they would go for today. But you did what you had to do when you had to do it. I guess that's the only way I can say it. And they were trying to kill us, and we were trying to kill them. It's just that simple. And so if you didn't kill them, they killed you. Yes. Uh, uh, I brought 2 hand grenades home, and when my kids in Chicago were getting a little older, I mean, I went out and threw them in the sewer in front of our house. Uh, no, I didn't bring any souvenirs home. Uh, there was nothing to bring. Oh, I think everything I had when I lived in Chicago, our basement flooded, and I lost everything. I still have my combat infantry badges, which to me is the most important thing. And of course, I got the French Legion of Honor Award last year, which I think is just as important as anything else. They recognized that I was in France, and that's it. I got a call about a month ago from a woman in Cincinnati who asked me, "Are you Boris Stern?" I said, "Yes." And she told me that she has a friend who was go around digging stuff up in France, and that he found the dog tag with my name on it, blah, blah, blah. Do I want it back? And I said, yes. And after about 20 emails back and forth with the gentleman that found it or got it, he sent it to me, and hopefully it's in here. Here it is. The other day, I think I told you I got, you saw this, right?
No, last
Oh,
time we spoke, it would.
That, I told you they were gonna send me, I didn't know. This is published in a French newspaper about me getting the medal and everything else. And they told me that today, I don't know if it'll be there, but I would they would try to send me an English translation.
Wow.
So I thought, I couldn't remember, I thought I showed that to you, but I guess I didn't have it yet.
No, sir. Yeah,
Okay,
it
well,
wasn't
anyway,
published yet.
that's it.
It's incredible, yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 2 pages.
Oh wow, check
And
that out.
they did all the homework. I didn't send them any of this stuff.